Hello and welcome back. It is Thrawn's Revenge here with another video, and this time a speed video. I know I haven't done one of these in a little while, but this was a fun one that I didn't actually end up posting instructions for and probably won't, so I thought that this would be a good video to kind of break down how I do some of my commission models. So this is a commission of set number 8630, Gold Hunt. I am doing a full remake of the set based off of the customer's instructions. What the customer asked for this was for me to redesign both the jet to look more like an F-35 and redesign the truck from scratch completely. You can see the original set up on the top left of my stream as I'm building. So the first thing that I wanted to do was obviously just build the original jet outright. As you can see in Studio, you can import a palette where it gives you all the parts from the set originally. So I had the instructions open on another screen and was just kind of looking at how it was built and copying it almost exactly. And then at the same time, I was discussing with the customer in DMs about how they wanted me to remake this set. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to redesign the shapes of the wings. The wings are the main thing that kind of don't make it look like an F-35 at all. The wings that are bigger are in the front, while the smaller wings are in the back. And then we kind of reposition some of the detailed parts here. Another thing that the customer asked for that was important is the weapons for the vehicle should look more realistic, or a little bit, or at least more interesting, as well as the vehicle should have folding landing gear so it can actually land as well. So here you'll see that I'm starting to try to figure out where that landing gear should go. I felt that this was the best location for it, as it wasn't super in the way, you couldn't super see it when it was folded up behind the wing on the rear, and ratchet joints are kind of the easiest way to do it. If this was a properly scaled F-35 fighter, I'd have a lot more space to put in proper landing gear, but you know, that's not always a possibility, especially when you're trying to stay on a budget. Most of the work that the customer wanted was for the truck itself and less the fighter, because the fighter itself I felt was a pretty good vehicle for what it is, especially for a Lego set. Legos made much worse aircrafts in my opinion, so this one wasn't too difficult to get to work. Sorry if I'm coughing a lot, I'm still kind of sick. So you'll see here as I kind of make modifications to the vehicle. The other landing gear needs to be put behind where the pilot is, so I'm trying to figure out how to finagle that last landing gear piece. And then you'll see I'll kind of position it in the way that it should be when it's fully in landing position, and then kind of tweak around where the different connection points should be to make sure that it's stable as possible. Now, of course, because I built it based off the instructions first, the internals and the rear was kind of filled in, so I need to get rid of the filling. And then you'll see that I'm reworking the cockpit to be a little bit more interesting than what they had. They kind of didn't have too much there in terms of just content of stuff, so I decided that it'd be better to kind of add some more things. Then you'll see I often will do a minifig test to see where the minifig clips, if the minifig can fit in properly where he's colliding. This test doesn't always work 100%. The real world and the digital world are two very different things, and sometimes there are slight clipping issues that I won't notice until later. Usually I can catch them, but sometimes that doesn't happen, but I try my best when I can. So you'll see I'll continue working in the cockpit area, trying to get more detail in there and make it look more, you know, aircrafty with the dials and the gauges and what I thought would be a cool heads-up display. And now we're filling the back in. I'm trying to use some of the pieces that were in the set, and then because I couldn't find more parts, I'm trying to reuse, you know, use new pieces as well. When I finished this model, I gave an XML file of the whole thing, and the customer most likely will just take the whole set that they already own and, you know, just take the set apart and then rebuild it. Here is something that happens often when I'm designing. I will try a concept that just ends up not working out. This is a very common problem when trying to design stuff on your own, of like, ooh, I have this really cool idea, let's see if I can get it to work. And just sometimes it doesn't work out. So normally for landing gear, the landing gear would fold into the belly, and there'd be plates that'll kind of fold in, and so I was hoping to get like a realistic folding in and out kind of system. In the long run, this, as you can see, kind of doesn't work. It's very difficult, as well as when you properly open this, now you're colliding with the actual landing gear, which is annoying to have to deal with. See, you'll see there now, it collides. I ended up having to just scrap that entire thing in the end. It sucks that happened, but you know, we can't get it perfect every time. So more working on that. And then this is where I think I just decided, yeah, screw the landing gear closing properly. That's not going to happen for this. So I just carried on and tried to see wherever the issues would be. Usually structural issues are the main thing. So you can see I'm kind of going around trying to finagle the structure a little bit more so that it's nice and tight. I noticed that when I originally was working on the cockpit section, the whole front of it was disconnected from the back, which is not good. That'd be a really obvious break point when playing with the model, and so I tried to fix that as much as possible. And then here you can see I'm kind of filling it up some more, and now we're working on the guns that the customer asked for. So the customer wanted more realistic rockets and a realistic front weapons. So here we are trying to make up something that looks kind of cool. And then my mocking friend suggested, oh, those should be like the other way around. So I ended up kind of fixing that after he recommended it, but I'll do that later. Here we'll see the guns that I added. I used the same design for another remaster that this person asked for, which is why it looks very similar to another one that I've already done. And then there you can see me kind of working around with it, trying to get it into the right position. It was weird because I was concerned that those fins would be clipping into the wing, but surprisingly they go in between the anti-studs on the bottom of the plate, so I didn't really have to worry about it too much. But it did like generally fit nicely there, which I was happy about. And that's most of the vehicle there. There's like some slight tweaking that I made here and there, but nothing too crazy. I was showing the customer here because they were actually in my stream. They wanted to see if there was a way to make the cockpit able to hinge open on its own. It didn't look as nice as just the way LEGO had already had it. So here you see me finishing that one up, and now we're going on to the truck. So the concept for the truck, if you didn't see earlier in this video, was, if you've heard of the Marauder, it is shown in Top Gear. The Marauder is a very unique armored car. It has 4 wheels and then an additional wheel to the side of it as like a spare. And so what I'm doing right now is I looked up the dimensions of the Marauder proper, and I am now trying to roughly recreate that in LEGO. I first tried a very realistic suspension system, which ended up just not working. I really wanted to do the realistic suspension. The only problem with the realistic suspension was that the minifigs, to be able to be seated where they should be on the vehicle proper, it goes through the floor of how it's actually designed. It's another one of those issues of minifigs are not real people. They do not work like that. So I eventually just had to scrap the whole super realistic portion of it and ended up going with just, you know, something different. So you'll see me kind of just continue working on this. I was trying to find a specific wheel piece in here that I thought would work with this. I think it's a new piece that they started using for Speed Champions, if I remember. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. And then here you can see me trying to do the realistic realistic undercarriage for the model, which, like, God, that would be so cool if that worked out, but I could not get that to work. It was too little space. It was not enough space for me to be able to fit the minifigs in there, as well as have extra space for weapons that the person added. They wanted me to have space for weapons, space for more minifigs, and space for the gold that they're stealing on the back of the truck, and none of that would have fit in this size. The Marauder actually went through 2 changes while designing it. There was the change where I went from the realistic undercarriage, and then I did another change where I went from a 7-wide design to an 8-wide design, because I couldn't get the math to kind of work out there in a way that I was happy with. So some of it does stay over from this version to the next version. So this kind of idea of how to get that front, this did kind of carry over in a different way, but it did kind of carry over. So sorry if I'm moving too fast for you guys for this in this portion of it. This video is sped up, I think, 1,200%. This was a 5-hour long stream, or possibly more, I think. So I was doing this for a little while. Then you can see me struggling there with some math again. And then here's the even odd system that I was doing. So yeah, you can see that it was originally going to be a very different size, and then I was like, yeah, that's not working out how I would like it to do. So we changed the scaling. Usually my scaling that I like to be in is a 1:43 scale. The customer ended up saying that it's okay if I go to a 1:35 scale. That's like the largest scale still within the minifig range. So I ended up kind of changing the dimensions of everything, and then asking the customer as well if they would like the undercarriage system, of which we ended up just scrapping altogether, which I think was a good decision. And then more repositioning. So yeah, so here's where I changed from it was going to be a 6-wide vehicle, now it's a 7-wide vehicle, and then again it went from a 7-wide vehicle to an 8-wide vehicle. Positioning a lot of this was very tricky, and getting it to look nice was difficult, but I think the end result, as you'll see in the very end, is totally worth it. And here the 3x3 plate, I love the 3x3 plate. I try to use that often because it's so helpful. And then at the end of this, make sure you let me know, did you guys enjoy this kind of content? If you like it, I could do more of this kind of content. If you feel this is more interesting than just the speed video where I'm just doing the model without any commentary at all, background music will be the same, just not as loud. It'll be as loud as the background music is right now. So the front of the Marauder is very weirdly shaped. There's kind of a wedging to the whole front of the vehicle under the wheel wells, and so I try to get that wedging under there, as you can see with the 1x2 slopes. And I'm using kind of a similar system that you saw earlier when I was doing it in the 6-wide vehicle, 6-wide size. I'm now switching it to the 7-wide, but I still got to keep those 2x2 brackets that are there, the flat 2x2 brackets that are pointed upwards. Those are really helpful for getting the wheel wells to be out farther than they should, but without colliding into the wheel itself, and then getting the kind of curvature on there. That was a raid. Don't pay attention to that. But yeah, that was, someone raided me. And then here's working on the grill. Again, building in odd sucks. It's very difficult. Ended up using a rigid plate, rigid hose. That's what it is, rigid hose. I don't remember the names of everything. I try to, but. And here we're working on the top of it, trying to get the angling down, the sloping down. I wanted to get it further in, which did not work as well as I would like. It's, again, one of those issues of when you're constantly switching between like a bracket and headlight brick, and you're constantly going between a half a plate thickness over and over and over again, I'll screw up very often because I forget, oh, is that half a plate up or half a plate down, and I'll just do it. Yeah, it's annoying. I should do a better job memorizing what the different systems are when I'm building, but I'm just trying to do it like as quickly as possible to get it finished at an acceptable time so the customer doesn't pay out the ass. Here's that grill detail you saw earlier, but done differently. Again, I like to use like really bright colors when I have pieces that are like not supposed to be there for long periods of time. The main reason I do that is because a lot of my builds tend to be not colorful in their color palette. So because of that, I use like a red or a blue or a green or like a yellow, just something that pops so I can look at the model as I'm building and be like, oh, that's not supposed to be there. It's just there for reference. And then I can remove it later. So for example, right, the minifigs, they're red. I've done blue minifigs as well and green minifigs. And I just prefer it to be contrasted to the rest of the vehicle so that I know that it's not supposed to be there in the final product. There you see the fantastic hinge tool. And so the windshield really hurt. I really wanted to use that windshield. It looks so cool, but the big problem with that windshield piece was that it was like $15, which is not cheap. So I had to go with this windshield piece instead. This windshield piece I think is like maybe in the 50-cent range. I would have greatly preferred to use the train one, but because it's a piece that's really expensive and not really popular or commonly used, I didn't, the customer's already paying me for the time it takes, and then they have to pay for the parts as well. I try to keep the parts cost down an acceptable amount, unless the customer ends up being like, hey, I'm willing to pay more money, then it's, whatever. Then it's up to them. But I tried to get it not to be too expensive, because, Lego's already expensive enough. So here you see me try to figure out the cab section and some of the back and the top. A lot of using the WASD keys in Studio, which moves things in slight increments, which is really helpful. So if you need to like finagle something into a specific position, the WASD keys are very helpful, but they are camera specific. So if you're looking at it on the bird's eye view, it'll be a different direction for WASD, whether if you're looking at it on the right side or the front side or the back side, if that makes any sense. Here I'm trying to fill up some more. Clip for where the mirrors go. And then here is where you see the difficulty of going from odd to even. I wanted the cabin to be 6 wide. I wanted the rest of it to be 7 wide. So the theory is that the whole top section would pop off in a 6 wide, and the bottom would be 7 wide for the rest of it. And it was just so difficult to get to work. The minifigs were constantly colliding. The way the cabin was going to connect was not working out well. And it was really infuriating, honestly, to get the whole system to function. And so at some point, I just kind of gave up when people were like, hey, what if you just switch to, not not a 7 to 6? And I was like, that's a good idea. I should do that. So you'll see that later here. And here's just, oh god, that windscreen looks so good. Sucks that it's $15. And you'll see me here looking at it and being like, man, I don't know if I can get it to work. And then here, I just cut the whole thing in half. So I cut it in half, I drag across, move the things that I need to reposition into, and just kind of fix the errors that I've now created because I've cut the entire model in half. So now it's just fixing the gaps that I've created. So of course more red, as reference. Reworking the top of the hood. And there's actually another builder who did a really good job at making the same vehicle, and so I started using theirs as reference for a little bit because I think they had better images than I was able to find. Since I had already started, I didn't want to scour the internet looking for better images as well, so I just used what they had already made and did some slight tweaks to mine to get it a little closer in design to theirs. So I only used I think for their version of it, I mostly did a similar way that they did the hood of the car. And so I did the hood in a kind of a similar style to theirs, although theirs was a little bulkier. I actually think theirs is a really good vehicle. I'll probably have their model in the description down below with a link to the rebrickable version of theirs, because mine won't be up for sale. So if you're interested in getting a Marauder, take a look at their version. It's pretty cool. So now I was trying to reposition the canopy back to where it should have been after I fixed the sizing issue. And then getting the minifigs in there and making sure that there's no collision, everything's fine, nothing's falling apart. I tried to get a door in there. I couldn't find a way to get a door in there without it looking bad. So the best way to get it apart is just to take the top off. Oh, sorry, yawn. Yeah, I'm doing this video at like 12:06 in the morning. I'm still sick. I'm sorry. Get back to normal content soon. So here we have the continuation of the cabin. So we're extending it backwards some more, and then I realized that I couldn't extend it all the way. I wanted to use that kind of like train plain piece that I was using on the top. That was the 4x6, but they don't come in a 2-wide version, which kind of sucked. So I ended up having to find a different solution for that. And here you see working on the cabin some more, trying to get it to look nice and pretty. And then here's the clips for the guns on both sides, so the bad guys will be able to have weapons there. Then I just removed the plate that was there, replaced it with a much bigger plate, makes it a much stronger vehicle. The plating I had on the bottom earlier was not structurally sound, so I wanted to make sure that when this model was built, it's all one single plate. When I build models, I like to make it all one piece as much as possible. I wish I was able to do some of the stuff that other mock makers where they have it a little bit more fragile but looks better. I try to get just a single plate or multiple plates stacked together to get a strong frame, because a strong frame means that you can play with it a little bit more roughly. I like models that you can play with as well as look, you know, nice. And then here's the back ladder. I'm trying to start designing the rear, trying to get it to look good. The back ladder ended up being, although really cool, if this was a larger model, didn't look as nice as I would have liked because it just sticks out too much. So I ended up deciding to go with a completely different idea where I just had the same ladder that I was already using in the center instead. And there's that ladder. And so now I've noticed when I'm looking at reference images for the back of the Marauder, it has kind of like a blast door, a hexagonal looking door, and so I want to recreate that by adding some clips, and then there's going to be a bar that's going to connect to that. So I'm using the IDT that I made as reference on how I got that door, and so I was hoping to use that same technique, but that ended up not working out, so I'm using a completely different technique instead. And so here you'll see the blast door. Of course, make the blast door a single submodel so that I can hinge it all together instead of the pieces being separate. Then kind of fill in the gaps that I have. So I deleted the markers. I don't need those anymore. And now I'm just filling in the holes that I haven't filled yet. So when I've got the main shape kind of down, I'll start to fill everything in, make sure there's nothing empty or nothing that's unstructured. I want to make sure it's as structurally sound as I can get it. And then once that's done, I can start putting in some stuff for the front of the vehicle where I can put in controls and wheels and that kind of stuff. So here you can start to see the inside of the vehicle start to take shape proper. And there's the seats where the minifigs are able to get the legs just out of there really easily. I like using that panel piece a lot. It's super nice and super cool to use. And then there needs to be a weapon for it. So originally that's what I wanted to do, is something like that. The, like, you know, MG42 on the top. But not MG42. The machine gun, the saw. I wanted that in there, but annoyingly, I couldn't get the proportions for it to work out, and if I did put that kind of gun in there, there would have just been a huge hole on the top, and it wouldn't have been, again, structurally sound. So I decided that the better option was to make a weapon that is used autonomously by the passenger. That's why there's that control section in there. So here's like, okay, what do I want to put on there? So I start kind of playing around with different ideas of what could be on there, but because the person said they wanted kind of like a anti-airish, machine gun-ish looking kind of vibe, a lot of the designs that I had originally made I ended up not using. So I had this idea of kind of doing like a machine gun kind of nest deal. So here's me working with the shielding for it, because I thought that some shielding would look really cool. So you can see me kind of play around with the positioning of everything so I can get it in a spot that would look good. The customer did want that a brick arms machine gun was able to fit this, so I made it so that that was also doable. So just that alone, you can snap a brick arms machine gun on it with a stud. I also added just an actual gun on there too that was built, so if, let's say, the customer didn't want to use that, they could easily just remove that completely. So here's kind of the gun shaping up with some details and stuff to make it look kind of cool. And then some greebling and texturing to flesh it out a little bit more than the magazine. And so that whole thing kind of snaps on there, and then that's its own submodel. And now I'm recoloring it to make it look similar to how it looks on the actual image you see in the top left. The colors are not exact because there's a slight difference in colors on studio versus in real life, so the real life colors will not look the same on the digital. But it is orange, it's like orange, I swear. It's properly orange. And then I'm changing some colors so it can be less expensive. Changing parts and colors. And then here is the end result. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm considering potentially doing more videos like this. So let me know if you're into this or the more sped up ones without commentary. Let me know in the future and I'll just carry on with that. So thank you, like, comment, and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.